I'm Grace Saba, an assistant professor at Rutgers University and co-coordinator for MACAN. Today we're excited to have chemical oceanographer Liqing Jiang presenting today. And this is our last webinar in this most recent series. We are having discussions now to see when our next webinar series will start. Liqing will be presenting today on the Ocean Acidification Data Stewardship, or OADS, and the Ocean Carbon Data System, OCADS projects. Liqing is an assistant research scientist affiliated with the University of Maryland. He works at NCEI Silver Spring through a cooperative institute with the University of Maryland. He's a chemical oceanographer specializing in the study of inorganic carbon cycling and ocean acidification. He received his PhD in oceanography from the University of Georgia in 2009, and he did his postdoctoral research at Yale University. He's been with NCEI since 2011, and one of the projects he is working on is the Ocean Acidification Data Stewardship project. In addition to data management, Liqing spends a lot of his time on global and coastal synthesis efforts. So he's going to present his seminar, and then at the end we're going to have a round of polling questions that will be facilitated through us, and you'll have the option to click on an answer on the screen. So just be prepared for that right after his presentation. And then we'll have about 20-25 minutes at the end for any questions and comments. So you'll all be muted during the webinar, but ask questions via the question or chat box that's in the menu. Anthony Himes, who's a PhD student at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, and he's also a Virginia Sea Grant Fellow assisting with the MACAN efforts. He'll be collating the questions to ask at the end of the presentation, so feel free to submit your questions at any time during Liqing's presentation. And this webinar will be recorded, and it'll be available on the MACAN website on the resources page with our previous webinars in just a day or two. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Liqing. So thank you so much for doing this webinar today.
All right, Grace, thank you so much for the introduction. Can you hear me well?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
All right. My name is Liqing Jiang. I work at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information through a cooperative institute of University of Maryland. Today, I want to share with you more information about ocean acidification data management here at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information. Before I start, I want to acknowledge my co-authors. The late CDIAC-Oceans. John Ralph is a very talented IT person who helps me build the IT infrastructure for my data management. And Scott is my federal manager. It's incredibly pleasant to work with Scott. Ross Parsons is our big boss, and he's also very involved in this project. Before I start, I want to show an outline of my talk. First, I'm going to show you the NCEI data management for generic oceanographic data sets. And then I will move on to talk about the Ocean Acidification Data Stewardship project, and then mention a little bit about the research related to data management here at OADS. And towards the end of my talk, I will talk about the Ocean Carbon Data System, also called OCADS. This is the kind of the replacement for the CDIAC-Oceans. First, I want to show you what metadata is. I'm sure everyone here in the audience is familiar what data are, but some may not be very familiar with what metadata is. So metadata is basically data about data. It is defined as structured information that describes an information resource. When I say information resource, I mean, in this case, it's basically data sets. For OA studies, a metadata could be information like what was measured, where was measured, and what instrument was used, what's the resolution of the instrument, what's the protocol of the measurement, things like that. Now let's move on to the generic oceanographic data management here at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the old National Oceanographic Data Center. We merged with the National Climatic Data Center in Asheville, North Carolina, as well as the National Geophysical Data Center in Boulder, Colorado several years ago. So now we are called the National Centers for Environmental Information. Our headquarters are now located in Asheville, North Carolina. There are two science centers within NCEI now. One is called the Center for Coasts, Oceans, and Geophysics, or we call it the CCOG. The other is the Center for Weather and Climate, or CWC. As you can imagine, the old NODC falls within CCOG, and now we call it the Oceanographic Science Branch. Ross Parsons, who is the highest ranking oceanographer at the NCEI, is the deputy director for the CCOG. And for Ocean Science Branch, right now Tim Boyer is the lead. And then underneath that is the Marine Ecosystem Unit, excuse me, that is led by Scott Krause. The two projects I'm going to talk more about today, the Ocean Acidification Data Stewardship and the Ocean Carbon Data System, are all within the Marine Ecosystem Unit. This slide shows you the major components of NCEI's generic oceanographic data management. We have a really good data storage system that is capable of long-term archival storage as well as version control. We have a very good meta page, and on the upper panel shows you the, we call it the NCEI's landing page. This is basically the primary metadata display page at NCEI. The lower one is called the Ocean Archival System metadata page, or OADS metadata page. It's kind of being phased out, but you can still access it as well today. I actually really like the one on the at the bottom because it's purely about the scientific aspect of the data. We have really good infrastructures to manage control the vocabularies, and we have I think we have the best data citation in the industry. We have a very easy to use online data submission system called Send to NCEI, and we have a brand new data access portal called One Stop. In the following slides, I'm going to show you more details about some of these components. First, let's look at the long-term archival storage system. Yeah, this is really the pearl jewelry of NCEI's data management, in my opinion. The more I learned about the system, the more I'm fascinated by it. For example, a lot of the data management systems, they just use an FTP server to store their data files. We don't think that's good enough here at NCEI. We store our data more or less like this. In a vault, it's super safe, and we are going to guarantee our data and metadata will be available for at least 75 years. It's interesting, they put out the number 75 years, but they did not put out a starting time. So my guess is the starting time is always today. So basically all the time we try to improve our system so that we can make sure our data and the metadata will be available forever. I just want to give you one example of our how secure our data file system is. We have backup locations in many different regions, including Colorado, which is about 1,600 miles away. What that means is that even if there's a natural disaster and our building is damaged or collapsed, you don't worry about losing your data. And even if some hackers are smart enough to hack into all our systems, which is highly unlikely in my opinion, we still have a copy of our data on tapes. We also make sure all proprietary file formats are converted to archivable formats. For example, if you send me data in Excel spreadsheet, we don't even consider that as an archivable format. We're always going to preserve your original Excel files for sure and make them available to data users. But at the same time, we always convert a copy of the Excel file to CSV and make them into our storage system as well. Now let's look at our version control system. Here at the NCEI, publication of a dataset is very much like publication of a paper on basically on a science journal. For example, once your paper is published, there is no way you can make changes to your paper. The same case is here for the data files stored at the NCEI's long-term archive storage system. In the future, if you are requesting to make changes to your data files, we are very happy to help you out. We're going to create a new version for your data files, but all the older versions of your data files will always be available, and they will always be individually citable. This is a really important aspect of our data management. You don't want to lose the previous versions only because the scientists want to update some of the files. If a user comes to our metadata page and click a download the data button, they are going to be taken to the latest version of the data files. But at the same time, all the historical versions will be available to them. Now let's move on to controlled vocabularies. Controlled vocabularies are basically some uniform lists of terms. They are really, really important for data discovery purposes. I can give you an example now. For example, if a scientist A measured the dissolved inorganic carbon and he decided to call it a DIC, and then another scientist measured the same thing, but he called it TCO2, and then we have another scientist and decided to call it T-carbon. And these are all commonly used terms. If we just archive the data file using the variable variation as they provided us, in the future, if a user comes to our data system and look for DIC data, they can only find a portion of them because we did not apply controlled vocabularies. For example, in this case, we would always map all these variations or DIC into the input in our controlled vocabularies, which is dissolved inorganic carbon. This is really, really important for data discovery purposes. Right now, we have a good infrastructure to measure, to apply controlled vocabularies for variables, which is basically the observed properties, how the variables were measured, instruments, platforms, research projects, etc. Let's talk about data citation. Yeah, one question to the audience is like, what do you think is really the most important thing about a data citation? Some people are going to tell me that it's a DOI. DOI is I think a DOI is a great data identifier, but the art of a DOI is that there is a link behind it. For example, if you plug in any DOI into dx.doi.org, you're going to get the landing page for a data or a paper or anything that with a DOI. So your DOI is really as good as the landing page is. If there is one day the data center goes under and that link is broken, your DOI will be broken and your data citation will be broken as well. So I really think the most important things for a data citation is to make sure your data is published in a long-term archive system. Actually, according to NOAA's PARR, which is the public access for research results, and only long-term archival centers can assign DOIs. I think it makes a lot of sense, actually. Now let me wrap up about the talk on NCEI's generic oceanographic data management. A lot of people tell me that they are not familiar with the concept of accession. It's actually, that's basically how we call the unit of data packages here at the NCEI. One data package is one accession. Accession number is a 7-digit numerical value. It's likely it's going to expand to 8 digits, 9 digits, but it's not going to happen very soon. Whether it has a leading zero or not, it's you can use them interchangeably. If you have an access number, and you can get its landing page by using this link. I'm going to share the slides with MACAN, and then they can send you a copy later on, so you don't need to worry about writing it down right now. This is the link for the OADS method page, basically the one, the lower panel I showed you earlier on. NCEI's ship code is the same as IC's code, so this link is very important to write down as well, because you would need this code to generate an export code, for example. Hi, Grace, should I pause for questions or just move on?
I think you can move on and we can save questions to the end.
All right, thank you. Now let's move on to talk about the OADS. OADS is the short for Ocean Acidification Data Stewardship. Our mission is to manage data that are generated from NOAA's Ocean Acidification. Their requirements. They basically tell me that right now for data submission purposes, I can only serve OAP funded APIs. But for the data discovery audience, we definitely serve our data and make them available to the international community for free. Our scope is all types of OA data. I'm going to show you more details in the next slide. We are located at NOAA's headquarters in Silver Spring. If you are familiar with our campus, we are on the third building, where you see the big hand statue. This slide shows you the OADS data scope. We basically manage all types of OA data. For example, chemical oceanographic data collected from surface underway, CTD profile, or a time series mooring, or biological data, or those physiological response studies collected from a laboratory experiment or model outpost data. We are kind of like a mini NCEI. We basically manage all types of OA data with, and we have the capability to do so. Here's a slide I showed you earlier on. It shows you the major components of NCEI's generic oceanographic data management. The reason I'm showing you again is to let you know the thought process for this OADS project. On the right are the really good infrastructure here at NCEI. We definitely don't want to drop them. And I think there are two things we can improve on our data management. This is like 7 years ago when we were first establishing this project. The first thing we think that needs to be improved is to put more subject matter expertise into our data management to make sure every single piece of meta information we put there is correct. I think I'm very proud to say that since the beginning of this project, this is the case. You're not going to see wrongful information on our meta page. I think that's the most important improvement for our data management, because ocean acidification data management is not like the management of temperature and salinity, which is very straightforward. We have a ton of terms that are very confusing to people who are not familiar with this subject. The second thing I want to improve is on the meta page. I'm going to show you more details in the next slide. Here's a NCEI's landing page. As you can see, we have a really good title, really good abstract. We have a temporal coverage, spatial coverage. We show the research vessels and then a list of keywords. That's it. So what is missing here? It doesn't show you how the variables were measured, what the instrument was used, what's the resolution of the instrument, what's the calibration of the procedure of the instrument, what's the reference materials that are used to do the calibration, what's the quality of the data, what do the quality control flags actually mean, and what's the unit of the data. You're not going to find any of the information from NCEI's landing page. That's the area we are going to improve. We basically trying to hit exactly where it hurts so that we can provide a more improved data management system here at NCEI. We basically applied a very bottom-up approach. We want to, from the very beginning of this project, we want to tap the scientific expertise from the entire international community. I think that's the formula for our success. We basically try to keep our ears open, hear what they want, and improve our system bit by bit. And this is the major sections for the OA metadata template that our scientists think are important. Here is an example of one of the sections. For example, this is for variables, things like dissolved oxygen or chlorophyll, things like that. For each variable, we're going to document its variable abbreviation in the data files. We don't want people to be faced with an abbreviation and don't know what the full name or the abbreviation is. So we document all this information, its unit, how the variable is observed, whether it's from a surface underway or from actually a laboratory experiment study. Whether it's an in situ variable you can use in your global synthesis efforts or a manipulation variable, you should not use it for global synthesis efforts. When document detailed sampling and analyzing information, is sampling instrument, analyzing instrument, all those kind of details, they are really, really important. Here is a meta display format. I always tell my customers, just tell me if you find anything that you do not like about this page. We can always try to make it better. Here on the left side, you can see that we have a title. We document is investigators, abstract, citation, all the identifiers, the type of the study, temporal spatial coverage, and all this information showing the map where the observation occurred. And on the right side, instead of showing dissolved inorganic carbon as a keywords, you get all this detailed information. I think this is a big improvement for our OA data management. Now here's all the components of the OADS data management. As you can see, we preserve everything that NCEI excels. These are the things I think are really, NCEI is doing really good. We rely on this to make sure our data are meeting all the government requirements and make sure our data is going to be available forever, and make sure you can enjoy the version control and enjoy control vocabularies and easy data access, enjoy the best data citation from the industry. At the same time, we use the rich metadata template we receive. We worked together with the scientists to build this rich metadata system to present the metadata in a way that's going to be designed for the advancement of science. That's going to meet the scientific needs of our PIs. That's going to make our scientists happy. So we basically, we basically rely on this system to make our scientists happy, and rely on this system to make sure we are all compliant with all the regulations and make our federal managers happy. Here's our submission mechanism. It's a very low-tech Excel spreadsheet. It does have its advantages because everyone knows how to use an Excel, and you can use this to import your metadata information even if there is no internet connection, because sometimes a lot of the scientists still work in remote locations or on a research vessel. It's very important they can do this offline. In the future, if you want to submit a new data set, you can just duplicate an old record and start from there. It's going to save you a lot of time. And in the future, I'm going to make sure this template is going to be preserved, actually can be absorbed into our new online submission system. If I receive a metadata in Excel format, we have a computer program to pull the information out of this Excel file and put them into our XML file according to the OADS convention. This is our future submission system. We are working with Eugene Berger's group from NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory to build this online submission interface that is capable of handling rich metadata information. We are going to build a machine-to-machine interface to archive a copy of the data into NCEI's long-term archival storage system in an automatic way. We're going to make sure if a user comes to the OA portal to search for data, they can view the rich metadata records we collected. And the future version of the interface will also be able to handle quality control efforts. This is very exciting, even though it's going to be kind of time consuming to make it happen. Let's look at our data access interfaces. This is a very low-tech table showing you all the data sets we manage for NOAA's Ocean Acidification program. A lot of people like it because it's easy to use. All you need to do is come to a project, click on one of the links, and get to the Metadata page and download the data. We also have a very easy to use data portal, easy and very powerful. It's for example, the reason I say it's easy because we use things like checkboxes, autocomplete, drop-down menus. Those are really easy to use interface, but we allow you to do your data access, data discovery based on things like a variable, how it was measured, and this spatial coverage, temporal coverage, as well as some additional terms such as the name of the PI or the name of the research vessel, etc. This is really, really powerful and easy to use. If you go to NCEI's homepage and go to their one-stop portal and try to discover data from there, you're going to come back and really, really appreciate this portal for sure. Because some of the portals are going to require you to write a really, really long search syntax to do this kind of search. And even myself can do it well if I have to write a search syntax myself. I believe it's easier for users to access mooring data in a visual map. You can come to this map and zoom in to a region and click on one of the buoy icons and then see more information about the buoy and access its metadata page and download the data files. Some trivial information about OADS. If you have an accession number, you can plug it into this link to get to the rich metadata page. However, right now it still requires you to put the leading 0 to have a 7-digit accession number. We might change that and make it easier later on. Right now, our rich metadata system does not like special characters. This is something to pay attention. Another thing I realized during my data management and during my interaction with the PIs is that it's very important to know that according to the NOAA's PARR or other requirements, your data is considered meeting all the requirements only after it's published and made publicly available. Excuse me. This is very important to understand because in the past I have several occasions an investigator would send me a data and then become non-responsive. A very simple data archival process turns into a nightmare. I have to constantly remind the PI, and then in the end we cannot publish the data after a year, and it's really, really sad because eventually if the PIs come to the blacklist or OAP and get sanctioned, this is really going to hurt the PI themselves. Let's look at some of the publications from OADS. First and foremost, I think we are data managers. It's very important that we lead the OA data management in the international community. So some of the publications, as you can see, this one is about the template I showed you in the previous slides. It's very important we document it in a peer-reviewed journal so that it can reach more audience. Right now, I'm working on a data standards for chemical oceanographic data for the international community. This is a very, very big deal. We're going to standardize all the column header standards for surface underway, CTD profile, as well as mooring data. And we're also going to standardize all the quality control flags. Right now, people use different sets of flags, and most people use WOS, but some of them, they use them wrong. It's very important for us to present this information to them in a very easy to use and unambiguous way so that they can use these flags properly. We are also going to standardize the use of missing value indicators. This is another thing that's very big. Believe it or not, the community recommended equations for calculating things like potential temperature, conservative salinity, and sigma theta are these TOS-10 equations. Very few labs, including those big labs with a lot of funding, are doing this way. I think one of the main reasons is because these equations are only available in MATLAB format right now. So I'm working with Dennis Perot from NOAA's AOML in Miami to work on some Excel equations to calculate these things. These are super complicated. It's going to take a significant coding efforts, but we are going to make this to you for available for everyone for free, so that in the future you can just come to our website and download a sample file and plug in your measured values, then you can get all these calculated variables easily. We're also going to standardize the calculation of apparent oxygen utilization, fugacidal carbon dioxide, carbonate concentration, and calcium carbonate mineral saturation states. I believe this is going to play a very important role in standardizing these calculations. We also do some real science work. I believe two of the most important indicators are for ocean acidification are calcium carbonate mineral saturation states and pH. Several years ago, we published a paper about the global distribution of calcium aragonite saturation state. We showed the users the distribution both in the surface and in subsurface, and showed the controlling mechanisms for this variable. Right now, we are working on to study the change of ocean acidity and buffer capacity from the beginning of industrial revolution all the way to the end of the century. As you can see, the ocean's acidity will increase significantly from 2000 to the end of the century, actually over 110% in that time period. The ocean is having enough CO2, and its buffer capacity is decreasing significantly. By the end of the century, from 2000, we are going to see a buffer capacity decrease of about 34%. Yeah, this figure is kind of confusing because it's counterintuitive, because reveal factor is a good measure of buffer capacity, but the higher the reveal factor, actually the lower the buffer capacity. This is another very exciting project. We are recently funded by NOAA's Ocean Acidification program to synthesize all of the carbonate as well as nutrient data in North America's coastal waters. We are going to work with the best of the best scientists in the field. This includes Dick Feely, Simon Allen from PMEL, Rick Vanninkoff, and Letitia Barbero from AOML, as well as Tim Boyer from NCEI. We are expected to make this a long-term sustained project. We're going to start with North America's coastal waters, and then expand it to include European waters, European coastal waters, and eventually go global. We're going to monitor acidity changes in the coastal waters. This is very, very important, considering that actually 90% of the fisheries are in the coastal water, even though its surface area is only about 10% of the global surface ocean. Let's move on to talk about the OCADS project. I believe my colleague Alex Kozer is also on the line, so if you have any questions later on, you can also ask him as well. Alex Kozer is the main person working on this project. As I mentioned earlier on, he brings a lot of expertise from the late CDIAC-Oceans. We are very lucky to have Alex Kozer with us. So as you can see from this slide, OCADS is short for the Ocean Carbonate System. Our mission is exactly the same as CDIAC-Oceans. that is hosting and providing access for global ocean carbon and related data. Our scope is very targeted and very focused. It's mainly about inorganic ocean carbon as well as its related information, such as nutrients, tracer gas, and isotope. Our audience is very broad. We serve the entire international community, so anyone can submit data to us. We are located within NOAA's headquarters as well, even though Alice Kozer is actually working from Tennessee. This is the data scope of OCAD. As I mentioned, it's very targeted. It's mainly about inorganic ocean carbon, as well as isotope, nutrients, and tracer gas data that are collected from surface on the way, CTD profile, as well as time series data. Yeah, I would like, excuse me for noise. I would want you to consider OCAD as the CDIAC 2.0. Now we have a much advanced data file storage system that is capable of long-term file storage, as well as version control. Now don't worry about losing your data in the future, and now don't worry about not meeting your data management requirements. And we also manage rich metadata, like what the CDIAC does, but we have a more modern and advanced system that is more capable. We made sure OCAD is using exactly the same technical infrastructure as OS. I think this is very important for us to make sure our data management is cost effective and be very efficient. We also made sure that all the DOIs, export codes, and these IDs from the CDIAC-Oceans can continue to be used as a search key to retrieve your data file. This is really, really important because a lot of the CDIAC data citations, they already appear in multiple publications. We need to make sure that future users, when they read those papers and get to their data citation and get to their DOI or export code, they should be able to find their data set here at NCEI. It took me 5 years to transfer all the historical CDIAC data set to NCEI. CDIAC has about 2,500 data sets. It's a huge collection. So now you can comfortably believe that by coming to NCEI, you can access all of the ocean acidification data, including all the historical ones from CDIAC. Now all the data and the PIs are compliant. This is really important. In the past, because NOAA's PARR requires the NOAA PIs to send their data to NCEI, but the PIs actually think CDIAC knows how to manage their data better because they have rich meta information and they can actually document everything correctly. Now the PIs can get the best of both worlds. You can send the data to us, enjoy the rich meta management, enjoy the very accurate meta information. At the same time, know that your data is meeting all the data management requirements. This is really important because in the past, the old setup could create duplications because eventually we want to get a copy of the CDIAC data sets to NCEI. Again, that's a problem. Yeah, now let me wrap up my presentation. I want to use this opportunity to thank the funding support from Ocean Acidification Program. I really appreciate the vision from Libby and Dwight. They put a lot of focus on data management. I definitely agree with them because we spend so much money into data management. We spend so much money into observation, and the data are basically the outcome of those research investment. We need to make sure the data are documented properly and can be used for future synthesis efforts and for future models. The OCADS project receives funding from NOAA Climate Program Office's the Ocean Observing and Monitoring Division, as well as NASA. As I mentioned to you, our formula of success is to tap the expertise from the community. So I really want to thank the input from countless scientists around the world. This page is mainly for your documentation. I basically provide you with all the links and contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to contact myself or Alex Kozer if you have questions for the OCADS project. All right, thank you so much for the invitation. I also want to thank MACAN for the opportunity to let me share with the audience about our data management. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liqing, for that presentation. Now we'll transition into those poll questions that Grace mentioned earlier, and then we'll get to the questions that were asked in the question box. So if anyone still has any questions, feel free to continue to put them in the question box as we go forward. So the first poll question will be an open-ended question, and if you could please type your responses into, okay, or won't. Yeah, if you could please type your your responses into the question box. I'll read some of those out as we go along. So the first poll question is, what kind of products do you think NOAA can offer to help you better understand changing chemistry as in ocean acidification? And feel free to type your answers into the question box. Okay, so some answers that we're getting in now are looking at organic non-carbonate alkalinity levels, creating syntheses of data and forecasts, understanding what venue is best to achieve best to archive ocean acidification data for U.S. observations from non-NOAA scientists. Data visualizations and products that are helpful for a snapshot of changing ocean chemistry, especially climatology plots. What recommendations would be best for monitoring future acidification changes? And understanding differences between estuaries and coastal waters. We'll move on to next polling question, but feel free to keep those answers coming in and we'll collate them for Liqing at the end. So for our second poll question, this one you can just select your answer on the screen. Are you familiar with the concept of pH? Okay, just leave this open for a few more seconds. Okay, so moving on to our next polling question. Now that this one is closed, you should be able to see the results in the poll section of your control panel. There we go. So it looks like all of our audience has heard of it, and most of our audience is very familiar with pH. So moving on to our next polling question. Are you familiar with the concept of carbonate mineral saturation state? Just leave this open for a few more seconds. Okay, so we can close this one. And it looks like a lot of our audience is familiar with it, but we have more levels of familiarity there. So moving on to our next polling question. Which best explains present carbonate mineral saturation state to the public? So pick which statement you feel best explains it. Leave this open for just a few more seconds. Okay, so we can close this one. And the bulk of our audience thinks the clearest statement for the general public is that lower saturation state make it harder for organisms to build shells, etc. So moving on to our next polling question. Which one of these products would you be most interested in? Leave this open for just a few more seconds. Okay, and we can close this one. So the result for our last poll here, for which one of these products would be the most interested in, we have quite a bit of variation here, but future projects of changing chemistry at specific locations was the top response. So now we'll transition into the questions that were asked during the webinar itself. So Liqing, the first question that was asked was that, are the data and metadata stored in a structured relational database, or are data files residing in an unstructured data pool?
Yeah, that's a very good question. For the data files, we are just storing them in an unstructured file storage system. We make them accessible and very secure, but we do not put them into a relational database for now. But that's just for the base tier 1 base level data management. Then we have things like the World Ocean Database and products like that. Then we have lots of people at NCEI. They also load the data values actually into a more structured way, and so that people in the future, users can access them in a uniform standard format for easy access, for example, our World Ocean Database. For metadata, that's a very technical question. In the past, we have a system called ATDB. We do store our metadata in relational database, but I think we are moving towards an ISO-based metadata storage. In the future, it's more likely the information we are going to be stored in standardized XML files, such as ISO 19115-2 standard. Hope I answered the question.
Yeah, I think you did. So our next question is, will you create an EndNote or Mendeley citation template for easy citation formatting when you're citing data that you've accessed?
Oh, that's a very interesting suggestion. We haven't thought about that yet. We might work with our library to think about something like that in the future. That's a very good suggestion.
Okay, so our next question is referring to when you mentioned the controlled vocabulary and developing new abbreviations. Do you plan on using or being compliant to other standardized vocabulary libraries like CF or BODC/NERC? Yeah, so there are groups that are using and improving upon existing ones and are just wondering how that data will be exchanged back and forth.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Basically, for my data management, if you look at how we develop things, we always are trying to stand on the shoulder of the giants. That's the way to success, I believe. For this one specifically, actually, a lot of our things like the column header abbreviations, we are building on top of the CCHDO column header standards. And specifically for CF and BODC, they are actually a different beast, because here we are talking about the column header abbreviations, but the CF and the BODC, they are about the controlled vocabularies for the terms.
Okay, one other question, well, actually a few more questions here. What is the best venue to archive ocean acidification data for U.S. observations if you're not a NOAA scientist?
Yeah, right now, if you are funded by OAP, you can definitely send the data to me. If you are not a a NOAA scientist or U.S. scientist, if you are collecting just carbon data or isotope, those kind of information, or nutrients, you can send it to OCADS, the project Alex Kozer manages. Anything else, you feel free to send it through our send it to NCEI, to send it to NCEI, the generic NCEI submission interface. If you send it through that way, you are not going to have rich metadata management, unfortunately. But we're going to make sure your data can be are going to be stored into the long-term archive and meeting the government requirement, etc.
Okay, another question here. Does NCEI provide any time periods where their data pages are open for comments from the community to help identify ways to potentially improve the accessibility or readability of data?
I wish I can ask first, is this person commenting on the generic NCEI landing page or talking about the OS page? Because if it's for the generic oceanographic data page, that's totally, it's not something I can control. But yeah, I can definitely ask them, ask my managers here at NCEI for that question. But if this person is commenting on the OADS project enrichment page, I can make the changes anytime, basically. If you have any comments, feel free to send us anytime. We are going to consider that when we improve our display format the next time.
Okay, I think that addresses that one. The last question I have here is in relation to the new project you mentioned for synthesizing ocean acidification data, specifically starting like along in the North Atlantic. How will you address differences in pH scales that have been used in different data sets while synthesizing all of that OA data?
Wow, that's a very technical question. So for pH is a really rough road for the pH measurement. Before the 1980s, most of the pH are measured by the glass electrodes. Those data, unfortunately, are not very helpful for us to study the change of ocean acidification, because for ocean acidification, we are talking about the pH change of 0.02 pH units every decade. So this is very, very small change, and glass electrodes are not going to have enough precision to do that. Then we have the spectral photometric methods in the 90s, and then we realized we have issues with the dye, and then we have lots of problems. But the good thing is that after 2000, I believe we are having some good pH measurement from spectral photometer. And if you have this kind of data, usually 90% of the time is all measured from the total scale, which is what the community recommended. If we do have a data set that are measured from, for example, for seawater scale, and the recommended conversion is actually use the community adopted CO2 system. Basically, you put your pH there and another common variable. For example, you also have total alkalinity data. You can convert your pH scales easily. Good thing about that is actually, I did some tests before. The pH scale conversion is very, very insensitive to your total alkalinity measurement at all. You can only, as long as you can give a rough number about your total alkalinity, you're going to have a very good and accurate pH scale conversion.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have here, so I'll turn it back over to you, Grace, to close us out.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Liqing. As I mentioned before, this is the last webinar of this series. I hope to see, I don't know I couldn't see the list of who's all on the webinar, but I certainly hope to see some of you at our MACAN workshop coming up this Monday in Baltimore. And we'll be in touch through the listserv about any upcoming webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace, and your team for organizing this.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you.